Hey everybody, Spike here with Heartbreaker Relics. There's a site on the lower Pearl River in Hancock County called the Claiborne site. It's a Native American site that gets its name from the plantation that was set on this site for many years. The site has been tied by artifacts to the Poverty Point site in West Monroe, Louisiana. At the Purvis Artifact Show, I had the privilege of sitting down and talking to Mr. Jerry Keller, who is very knowledgeable on this subject, the subject of the Claiborne site and its sister site. And again, I forget the name of it, but he'll talk about it in the video. And for a while, I've been wanting to get this on video and get it documented, and he has graciously granted me this interview, and he's going to explain everything that I think needs to be explained about this site. And what we'd really like to do is generate some interest in this and maybe get some more work done down there, or maybe try to preserve the site or something, because in all honesty, it's probably the largest significant site that you've never heard of in the southeast. So without going any further, let me introduce you to Mr. Jerry Keller and let him tell you what he knows about this site and its connection to Poverty Point.
What we're going to talk about today is a late archaic site in Hancock County, Mississippi called the Claiborne, that had a sister site just to the north of it called Cider. Well, everybody's kind of wondered about how this all come about, since Poverty Point is connected with the Claiborne and the Cedarland sites. What they found out was the PPOs and certain other material, soapstone type material called steatite, and a Poverty Point trademark arrowhead called motley was found at Claiborne. Well, them folks is trading all over the United States. If you look at this picture, the steatite bowls that were found at the Claiborne site, this material comes from East Georgia, out of the Piedmont area of Georgia. So how did that end up over there? A great trade network. How did copper end up at Poverty Point from the Great Lakes? A great trade network. So you look at the Poverty Point area, there is no natural rock on that plateau along Bayou Mason. They brought rock in as far as from 1,000 miles away to trade. So what were they doing on the Mississippi Gulf Coast? That's a great question. My thoughts is they were trading salt. They'd go down, make big vats out of pottery, dry to salt water, scrape it out, move it north. That would be my guess. The thing that mostly connects Poverty Point and the Claiborne site are these objects here. They're called cooking balls, for the best of everybody's knowledge. And you got different shapes. You got biconicals, you got melon shaped, and then you got some with grooves in them. And through experimental archaeology, they've learned that different shapes hold different temperatures for different amount of times, which is pretty neat if you sit there and think about it, because they were using these things to cook with, putting them in a fire and using them to cook with. 1969, they were doing bulldozer work on the Claiborne site, and if you can see this right here, this half crescent shape, that is another thing that connected Poverty Point to the Claiborne and the Cedarland sites, because of the concentric rings at Poverty Point. In 1969, they were doing bulldozer work, and they were scraping the top of the ground, and somebody noticed a gray-shaped object in the ground. If you can see this picture right here, it says steatite bowls. They found 12 steel-type bowls with a motley point and a copper spool. And they were all stacked together and buried like a cache. Those bowls ended up in a museum in Ohio for a long time. The great archaeologist Sam Brooks had a great deal in getting them returned to the state of Mississippi, which we want to give him a little shout out on that, because that took great footwork to get those brought back home, and they're in Jackson at the Museum of Natural Science, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of history down there on our coast that people really don't know about, and a lot of it's been took for granted because it's fixing to be lost forever due to storms, due to houses and subdivisions being built. And if you're ever in a boat and you're riding down one of these coastal bayous and you look along the bank and you see these Regina clamshells lined up for 100 yards or what, stop right there and look. So you might not realize that you're looking at where people lived at one time, 3,500 years ago, all the way up to 1699 when Iberville made landfall somewhere between Ocean Springs and Mobile. He encountered the inhabitants at that point. Spike, if you want to ask any questions to help with the interview.
Yeah, the Claiborne site and the other site.
Cedar.
What is it?
Cedar Land.
Cedar Land?
Cedar.
Were they contemporary? Were they at the same time or the same time?
They say that Cedar Land was older, but what we're looking at in these books, especially this one right here that's about the Claiborne site, that they said that they were occupied at the same time.
Okay.
But it was a different group of people.
And I did see a theory somewhere, I forget who wrote the paper, that they thought that maybe the Claiborne site was earlier than Poverty Point, that Poverty Point sprang up from Claiborne.
Everybody's still up in the air on that because in here, it don't really give you a definite answer on that. It just mentions both sites. So there's no telling where the people come from. My theory on Poverty Point is there's a mountain group southwest of Monroe called Watson Break.
Right.
And that's the first place that the PPO type objects showed up. They were cubicle looking pieces, but it resembled what Poverty Point does, but it was separated by 2,000 years. So something happened at Watson Break. Either the water source dried up, changed course, something happened, and I think those people moved northeast into the Bayou Mason area on the Mason Ridge in between Monroe and Vicksburg, because that's actually the only high ground at that time. So if you think back 3,400 BC, there was no levee systems.
Right.
And when the Mississippi River got high, you can guarantee that there was water from Vicksburg to Monroe.
Right.
Because there is no hills there.
Right. And in my opinion, that explains a lot of the lower mounds. To me, like they built them high enough that when the river did flood, they had someplace
somewhere to go.
To go.
If you look at Mount Helena in the Delta, they found artifacts in the fields around there, but never on the actual mound itself, and that had to have been a refuge.
Yeah.
To get out of the floodwater.
That's kind of, I put that together a while back, so that's got to have something to do.
That's like I said, we up here at this Arrowhead show, and we got thousands of years of experience in here that everybody can get together and brainstorm on this. And
you'd be amazed what avocational archaeologists can put together.
Yes, you can,
Both.
because James Storms made a great comment on a message that I sent him one time. He said, without us, that they would be lost because there's not enough of them.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And if there's any way that we can generate enough interest to get get the state looking at that site down there again.
It would be a good idea, because even south of there in that marsh, I can say right now there's 10 sites that I know of that's been storm damaged so bad that you can't find anything. But if you go to the Pearl River Train Bridge where the Baldwin plantation is, Ida come through, those big oak trees that's along there by where the swimming pool is.
Yep.
Blew them oak trees over, and it exposed pottery like you have never dreamed. And it's stacked up on top of each other.
I hadn't been there since Ida. I hadn't been to that
We
area.
stopped by there just by accident. It was hot. We was fishing. Let's get in the shade. Person that was with me jumped up there on the bank and said, "Hey, you'll never believe what I'm finding." I said, "What?" He said, "Pottery like you've never seen before." And then some of it was big pieces. Some of it was
Wow,
big.
that's cool, man. That's cool. But Jerry, we appreciate you sharing. I've been wanting to get this recorded for a long time and getting it documented. We got plenty publications on it, but you don't find a lot of personal knowledge on YouTube about it.
Not really, because everybody knows how to talk or what to talk about. If you go to Poverty Point, you can get this book right here. It's about $25. I stumbled across this one on the internet and got it off of Amazon. I don't even remember how much it was, $9 or so. And you can also go online. The Hancock County Historical Society has some great information on their website that you can look up stuff and read about the settlements along Pearl River. You can read about Poverty Point. You can read about interaction between Claiborne site and Poverty Point, and just great information that's free to the public if you want to look it up. But we appreciate y'all's time.
Hey, we're going to take a ride down to the river where this Claiborne site is. Going to put the boat in. My son's going to go with me, and going to try to get some footage from the boat. Just take around and let you see this site and the midden from water level. I think that'll be pretty interesting for you. So let's go. We just turned into Mulatto Bayou, and the Claiborne site is over here, coming around this curve is on the right over here, over in this area. And I'll show you, I'll show you that the big midden that used to be a lot bigger than it is now. And by the way, the fishing in here is great too. What you're looking at right now is where the Claiborne site was back there. That midden pile was along this shore, and the tide's real high right now, and you can't see it. If the tide was low, I'd pull over there and show you some pottery. But this is where this is it. This is the site that you saw in the satellite imagery earlier. But I just thought it'd be cool to come down here and see it in person. Let me turn this GoPro off and zoom in a little bit. That's a little bit better. Now just imagine 3,500 years ago the activity that would have been in here. I mean, it was paradise for these people. They had plenty to eat. I said they had those clams that Jerry was talking about. They had all these fish in here. The trade networks up and down these rivers and these bayous, and the Mississippi Sound is not very far in that direction. You see the mullet jumping over there now, and they didn't have any aversion at all to eating mullet. In fact, people ate mullet up until a few years ago. I hope you got something out of that, and at this point in the video I'm not going to ask you to check the merchandise out or give us a thumbs up, whatever. I'm going to ask you to share this video so we can generate some more interest in this site, get the state to take another look at it, the county to take another look at it, or something, and maybe we can go back in there and look at it. Maybe they can preserve it and hold on to it for a few more years before it's washed completely away. Thank you for coming, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.